from Jonathan and me, and welcome to the programme.
Well, first tonight, the Premiership footballer fighting to rebuild his career and his reputation.
The former West Ham and Norwich City player Calum Davenport was today cleared of attacking his pregnant sister at her home in Bedford last August.
He was accused of headbutting and biting her following an argument over her pregnancy. Well, our correspondent Neil Bradford's been following the case. He joins us now live from Luton Crown Court. Neil.
Yes, Calum Davenport appeared to have it all, a top-flight player in the Premiership with a £15,000 a week salary. But since this incident in August last year, he hasn't played a single game of professional football. His contract with West Ham was terminated earlier this year. The aftermath of a drunken row with his sister almost cost him his life when he was stabbed in both of his legs. And although he has fought successfully to clear his name here at Luton Crown Court, he now faces an entirely different fight. Calum Davenport may have walked free from court, but his career and reputation have been severely damaged. From a promising start with a place in the England under-21 squad, the father of two now faces the prospect of starting all over again.
I'm pleased with today's outcome and the jury's decision. This has been a particularly distressing time for my family, but I hope now that we can put this behind us and I can focus on my career.
The Bedford boy began his career with Coventry before signing to Tottenham and West Ham. He also spent time on loan to Norwich City. It was alleged the 27-year-old attacked his then pregnant sister Cara during a row which also involved their father. Both men were drunk when they visited her home in Bedford's Colley Road last August. At first, the mood was good, but it soon turned sour when they began discussing her latest pregnancy. It was the prosecution's case that Calum Davenport headbutted his sister 5 or 6 times before biting her and then banging her head against a wall repeatedly. But in the end, they accepted his version of events, that the injuries were sustained accidentally when he intervened to protect his father. The jury of 6 men and 6 women took a total of 7 hours and 52 minutes to reach their majority not guilty verdict. Since that drunken row, Calum Davenport hasn't played football. Just a few hours later, he was attacked by his sister's partner, Worrell Whitehurst, who stabbed him in both legs outside his mother's house in Kempston. He lost half his blood and spent a month in hospital. Davenport's £3 million contract with West Ham United was terminated by mutual consent in March. The defender may have successfully defended himself in court. He now needs to save what's left of his promising career.
So, Neil, he's been acquitted today, but what next for Calum Davenport?
Well, clearly he's now a free agent to join whichever club will have him. There's obviously a lot of work he needs to do, not just to return to full fitness because of those horrific injuries to his legs, but because of the injury to his reputation. There is no doubt that this court case has done untold damage to his reputation. It's an episode he and his family would rather put behind them. But after today's verdict, his barrister argued that his defence costs should be paid out of the public purse. The judge urged him to reconsider. He said, given the defendant's behaviour that night, of which he is admittedly ashamed, and his rather fortunate financial position, he may wish to reflect on whether to make such an application. His barrister will do just that in the coming days.
And Neil, there's someone else involved in this whole case, isn't there? That's Worrell Whitehurst, the man who actually stabbed Calum Davenport. What about of him?
Yes, he's already pleaded guilty to stabbing Calum Davenport on August the 22nd last year outside Calum Davenport's mum's house in Kempston. He's currently on remand in prison awaiting sentence, and now this case is over, he'll be sentenced here at Luton Crown Court in the coming weeks.
Neil, thank you. Next tonight, the family forced to wait 3 years for a hospital apology over the death of their son.
Yes, 3-year-old Jonathan Hopp was taken to Peterborough District Hospital in July of 2006. When he died 13 days later, his heart condition hadn't even been diagnosed, let alone treated.
Well, now his father wants to know why it was so difficult for the hospitals which cared for him to take the blame. Emma Baker reports.
He was just idolised by everyone in the family because he was so outgoing and so warm and so funny.
Jonathan Hopp was a happy child with his whole life ahead of him. Now his family is left with only memories. He died when he was just 3 years old. a death that might have been prevented had staff at 2 hospitals investigated his heart condition properly. But despite their mistakes, it took their bosses more than 2 years to say sorry.
It's not easy to describe what we've gone through. To lose a child is exceedingly painful. To be advised that needn't have happened, to some degree you question yourself. Perhaps I could have done something differently. If only I had pointed something out, if I had a bit more forceful about getting extra checks done. I refuse to take the blame for that, but those thoughts cross your mind.
Jonathan was admitted to Peterborough District Hospital on the 12th of July 2006 with suspected pneumonia. 3 days later, he was transferred to Leicester Royal Infirmary, where there was more specialist paediatric capacity. While there, a new symptom was discovered, thought to be a heart murmur. The symptoms worsened, but Jonathan was not examined by the cardiology team. On the 21st of July, he was transferred back to Peterborough, where staff decided he could go home during the day. An electrocardiogram was eventually ordered, but Jonathan was allowed home on the night before the procedure. When his mother went to wake him the next morning, she found he had collapsed and was unresponsive. He was pronounced dead at hospital 13 days after first being admitted. But only now, 4 years on, have the hospitals owned up to their mistakes.
To take 2 years to admit liability means that they don't think it was a serious matter in the first place. I would like the NHS to be shamed that this can happen and has happened before, and I guess it will happen again.
The most distressing thing remains the death, and one shouldn't take away from that at all. The delay in dealing with it through the legal procedure, I think, was unacceptable.
Both hospitals have apologised to the family in private letters. Leicester Royal Infirmary has said, "We are extremely sorry for what happened to Jonathan and accept that further tests should have been carried out to diagnose his condition. It is now our policy that no child is discharged or transferred without being reviewed by senior members of the team." Spencer Hopp knows that nothing can bring back his son, but by speaking out, he hopes he might prevent another family going through the same pain. Emma Baker, Anglia News, Peterborough.
Well, in another very sad incident, a coroner has said that heart monitoring failed to trigger concerns about a baby boy who died within a day of being born at Milton Keynes General Hospital last December. Coroner Tom Osborne said expert evidence showed that Alex Broughton's decline would normally have been reflected in his changing heart rate. The hospital said there was nothing to suggest that any aspect of his treatment was deficient. Relatives of the little boy called the aftercare a disgrace and said that serious problems had continued at the maternity unit despite concerns being raised previously.